Hey everybody, welcome back to another HD broadcast, and today I have a treat for everybody that's a StarCraft nerd around the world. This is going to be none other than Huck as the red Protoss player, and his opponent is going to be none other than the one and only TheLittleOne. It is going to be Huck versus TLO, a Protoss versus Zerg, and these two players are the icons of Protoss and Zerg alike. They are the superstars, and they are here to collide on Metalopolis. I cannot wait to cast these games. I did not get to see these live, but I did get to meet these two players at MLG Dallas, and in fact these were played at MLG Dallas on day 3. I just didn't get to see the games because I was actually sleeping in, and I missed the absolute best matchup of all time, but I am here to cast them once again and bring them out on YouTube, so hopefully you guys enjoy this cast. And once again, a PVZ. So, wow, I know there's a lot of Huck fans in the house, and I know there's a lot of TLO fans in the house. These two are definitely fan favorites, and it's kind of tough to pick one over the other because both these players have such histories behind them. They both have their own epic saga of how they came to become the best Protoss and the best, well, TLO was the best random player, and then he decided to play Terran, and then he switched to Zerg. But both of them have a history, and both of them are extremely good. Once again, this is a best of 3, so yeah, I'm ready to cast. I'm so excited, and it looks like Huck here has gonna be throwing down a gateway. One thing to note is they did spawn at cross positions, and it looks like TLO is gonna be throwing down a 14 hatchery. So the nice thing about Zerg is if you get these cross positions, not only do you get to expand all over the map and take these expansions happily like any Zerg player likes to do, but you also, oh, look at this, Huck gonna be throwing down the double Protoss pylon at the ramp, and TLO will be forced to pull drones to deal with this. But what I was gonna say is the other thing TLO gets with these cross spawns on meta is that, and the crowd goes wild, TLO also gets the advantage of not being able to get rushed early on because of the long distances between the two bases. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case here. Huck will be throwing down the double cannon behind the pylons. He has to get another pylon up right here, but the drones will distract the pylon from going down, and now the cannon is starting to get worked on by the drones. And you guys might be wondering, is this really necessary from TLO? And as a Zerg player, yes, it is necessary. You have to pull almost all your drones to deal with this early Protoss aggression, because if you allow these cannons to go up, the cannons will take down your hatchery, and you are going to be very far behind in the minerals and resource department. So TLO deals with that very well, takes out all the pylons and the cannons. Well, there's one pylon left. He takes out the cannons, and then now he can start to go ahead and mine happily. At the same time, Huck is going to be going for, whoa, what is this? He went for, I would almost say, a 20 Nexus after the Forge, and he's not even really deterred at all. All he has to do is lay down a couple of cannons. He knows that TLO is not going to have any Zerglings yet because he has his pylon to spot when the Zerglings come out. So Huck here looking very good. Gonna throw out 2 gateways as well and a cannon right behind the gateway. And the nice thing about Protoss players on this map is if you decide to go for that Forge or even a gate fast expand, you can position your buildings in a fashion such that the Zerg units have to run around the Nexus, and then they're allowed to go up the ramp. And you guys can see if Huck decides to throw down a couple more buildings right where this green box is, he can definitely erect that kind of wall off against the Zerg and their forces. So definitely look for Huck to do something like that. It looks like he is throwing down a 3rd gateway here. Oh, there is an opening for the Zerglings to make their way through, and the Zergling gets up the ramp but then gets killed off. It does, however, see the 3rd gateway. So TLO here might be alerted to the fact that there could be some forces coming out in the next couple of minutes. It could be a Feign Nexus, and when I say Feign Nexus, I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to be a Feign Nexus. Huck here throwing down double chrono boost on his gateways. Huck here is trying to feign the fact that he's gone for a fast expand. He's not going to really be pumping probes at all. As you guys can see, his Nexi, the plural of Nexus, probably not true at all, are not pumping much probes whatsoever. In fact, Huck here is chrono boosting +1 weapons, and he may be going for some early aggression on his gates, but TLO here is going to be going for a gold expansion at the center of the map. Oh my goodness. And TLO is going to be throwing down a Roach Horn. Now, The thing about TLO is he has to scout, he has to see exactly what the Protoss player is up to. Great Protoss pylon right here to prevent the Zerglings from running behind the mineral line. And with this, TLO is going to see what Huck is kind of up to. It looks like Huck here is deciding to not be aggressive quite yet. He's going to wait for Warp Gate technology, and he's going to wait for +1 weapons, and then he's going to make a triple Warp Gate push. Look for him to possibly throw down a 4th Warp Gate or possibly a Twilight Council. And it looks like TLO here is going to scout out the early Zealot and Sentry. So he does have an idea of what is up, but TLO should have seen the chrono boost on the Warp Gate, so he knows he has some time before Huck decides to move out. And with that, if he can get this hatchery, if he can get this gold hatchery saturated, he will be at a huge advantage. And it looks like he has pretty much transferred about half of his drones all the way over to the gold expansion. And right now Huck has no idea that this gold expansion is going up, and all he has to do is touch these Xel'Naga watchtowers. But of course, TLO's so good. Controlling the watchtowers with a Zergling apiece will prevent the probes from ever scouting that out. And it looks like now Huck has decided to move out. His Warp Gate technology is done. He's even throwing down 2 more Warp Gates for a total of 5. He's got +1 weapons finished as well. And if he can take this watchtower, he is going to see the gold expansion. Oh my goodness. TLO now is going to be in hordes of trouble. And Huck knows he has to take out this gold expansion, throwing down great force fields right there. And one thing that Huck is very well known for is his force fields, his ability to cut off the Zerg army in half and then deal with the frontal half. Looks like he is going to not engage. He is going to fall back as the roaches start to pile in. Huck will need a couple more stalkers to deal with this as 3 more stalkers warp in. And TLO has to be careful, loses 1 queen, gets a transfuse off before the queen falls. But now the spine crawler is going to get taken out, and TLO's gold expansion, this greedy expansion, could have paid off very, very well for the Zerg player, but now is going to be a huge cost dump. And TLO now is going to lose this gold expo. The hatchery now in the orange, even the Overlord dies, and the hatchery will fall. The Roach here is barely going to make it out. No, TLO not controlling. The Roach does make it out, but the hatchery falls. And now TLO in a very, very bad situation. He's going to try to get yet another greedy hatchery down to the 5 o'clock. And he does seem to have quite a few Roaches. He has 6 more on the way right there. So he also has Carapace. He does seem to have the army to deal with Huck. But if we look on that income tab, oh, both players relatively even. So TLO here has been doing a pretty good job of staying on top of economy, even though he just lost a huge hatchery at the gold. Now he's going to try to engage the Protoss army at the center of the map. Notice that TLO does have the creep bonus, but he doesn't have the Glio reconstitution upgrade for the Roaches yet. Great force fields from Huck, laying down on the Roaches, but the Roaches outmaneuver the force fields, and it looks like Huck here gonna be forced to run up to the high ground, and as a result he will probably, no, he doesn't see the gold expansion. There we go, he sees the gold expo just barely. I'm sure TLO is not going to be happy about that. The one nice thing though is he does have creep, so he can kind of use the creep to maneuver himself up on this ramp and deal with the stalkers. But my goodness, he needs to get the Glio reconstitution. There we go. I was gonna say, is he gonna get that speed upgrade, or is he gonna allow his Roaches to be slow Roaches all day long? Looks like the speed now kicks in, or is just starting to be researched. So for now, TLO will have to stay on the creep if he wants to deal with the stalkers. But Huck here abusing the mobility of the Roaches and is continuing to pick off Roach after Roach. And TLO here has to produce some Zerglings. It looks like he has 8lings on the way. TLO also getting the gold expo, could possibly get sniped here, and the hatchery gets sniped once again. Another 300 mineral investment. Huck here doing a great job with his stalkers, continually keeping the pressure on TLO, and it looks like Huck here trying to get Twilight Council down, so he is going to try to get Blink for his stalkers, and possibly even go to Dark Templar tech, although I don't see that as the tech of choice with all these stalkers out. It looks like TLO has now gotten another expansion down. Oh my goodness, TLO here is playing ultra greedy Zerg. How is he affording all of these hatcheries, and how does he have 59 drones and still has a massive army? TLO is playing so well right now, and Huck now, I have to say, Huck is the one who's in trouble, even though he's been the one who's been applying pressure all game long. His expansion now forces to cancel. TLO is playing brilliant Zerg play, playing all-out macro. It looks like Huck, though, will force a cancel once again on the gold expansion. That's the third time it's gone down today. Do note that the Protoss forces have +1 shields and +1 armor. Looks like TLO here gonna go for a surround pincer maneuver here. He catches the Zealots out of position. Now the Roaches get a free shot towards the Stalkers. Even some Zerglings coming out from the south side, picking these Stalkers off. And Huck here, does he have Blink done? Blink is just about to finish. He can blink up to the high ground and safely outmaneuver the Stalker, the Lings and the Roaches. And it looks like he does just that. Oh man, that was a close, intense battle. But you guys have to remember, the longer this game goes on, the further behind Huck falls, as he's now dealing with a 4-base Zerg, although TLO only has saturation at 2. So Huck really needs to make something happen in the next couple of moments. Otherwise, he's going to be facing a 4-base Zerg, and he's just not going to have the economy to power through that. Looks like he's going to use Blink there to catch some of the Speedlings as they try to flee. But wow, TLO here is now getting Neural Parasite. This is just the most insane Zerg play I have ever seen. Do note the Infestors already have the Fungal Growth Energy upgrade ready, but this is just insane. Huck, TLO going for these bold expansions, expansion after expansion. I almost have to say it's kind of cool, because Huck is forced to choose which expansion to hit first, and it looks like Huck here gonna blink up to the high ground above. He is gonna be able to deal with these Roaches. Good maneuvering from Huck. Oh, but too many Roaches coming out, and the Infestors, they have energy for fungal growth. They can lock down the Stalkers. The Stalkers cannot blink when they have the green goo on them, and it looks like Huck now has been countered. His blink has been countered. These Stalkers are gonna be cornered in. Oh my goodness, blinking down to the Roaches below, and it looks like some more of them are going to fall as a result. But what I wanted to say was TLO's mass expanding build, just constantly grabbing expansion after expansion, really is kind of cool, because even though Huck picks off one expo here, he just doesn't have the time or the forces necessary to deal with the other expansions down to the south. And even if TLO doesn't get saturation going on there early on, he can get the saturation later on when the Protoss forces are forced to play defensive with all the Zerg army maneuvering around the map. And that's exactly what is going on right now. TLO is looking to be in a great position. Huck now realizes he needs some Immortals out to deal with the massive Zerg army, but it may be too late. The Zerg eco, the macro, the long game has kicked in now for TLO. He's at 173 over 126. Too many Roachlings and Infestors. Double force field getting laid down here. A couple of Zealots desperately trying to warp in, but the Protoss forces are quickly whittling away, and you guys can see the Roaches there just barreling their way forward. And it looks like this is going to be GG in game number 1. The Roaches unimpeded, continuing to proceed forward. One lone Immortal blasts the Infestor away, but there's just too many Roaches there for the Immortal to deal with. And a constant link production from here on out. You guys can see Hive on the way for TLO. He is also getting, and I like the Spore Crawler here. All too often, DTs become the bane of Zerg in the late game, and a couple of Spore Crawlers well placed can definitely fend off against that. But it looks like the Lings here are gonna once again repel the Protoss attack. This is Huck's last stand. He has to hold on to this third expansion, but it looks like the Roaches will indeed take that down. Even the Probes forced to fight for their lives. But I think Huck realizes that he has fallen way too far behind. The Nexus will fall, and with that, the last hopes and dreams of the Protoss army are crushed as the Overseers are now morphing in. I thought those were Broodlords for a second, but no, it is 3 Overseers on the way, and not quite sure what these Overseers are intent to do. But it looks like Huck once again trying to get the expansion up, but forced to GG as he realizes that TLO is just running off way too many bases. I'd like to see how many Huck saw. No, he never saw the 4th expansion. He did, however, see the 3rd, and for all he knew, the gold could have been held as well by TLO. So, wow, absolutely incredible play from TheLittleOne, going for this mass, bold expansion style Zerg play early on in the game. And of course, Huck really never had the time or the army that early on in the game to deal with these mass expansions, and in the end, even though he picked off a couple, in fact he picked off various expansions at the gold, eventually that macro game kicked in with all these hatcheries at these resource locations, and TLO was able to overpower Huck, the Protoss player, in the late game. So an incredible Zerg versus Protoss, and we are going to be moving on to game number 2. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that broadcast, and yeah, go quit this video, hit the next video. We're going to move on to game number 2. HD signing out.